Hello and welcome to the Run Testers. My name's Nick, and in this video I'm going to be comparing the Nike Pegasus Plus and the Adidas Adizero Evo SL. So I want to compare these two shoes because there's a lot of similarities between them on paper that I thought were quite interesting, in that they're both pretty lightweight and simple daily trainers that obviously use a super foam from their respective brands' racing range in an otherwise non-super shoe. Like, there's no plates in these shoes. They're designed to be able to handle a range of daily training, but they do have that foam in there and they're quite intriguing options. The Adidas is the cheaper shoe. It's £130 or $150, whereas the Pegasus Plus is £165 or $180. Adidas is also significantly lighter. It's 224 grams or 7.9 ounces in a UK 9, whereas the Nike is 257 grams or 9 ounces in a UK 9. The Adidas has a 6mm drop and the Nike has a 10mm drop. With the Adidas, you've got a minimal mesh upper with a little bit of padding around the heel and a pretty significant internal heel counter to add some structure at the back of the shoe there. You have a slightly troublesome tongue, which some people have found a bit difficult in terms of fit, but hasn't really been a bother for me. You've got a Light Strike Pro midsole, and now this version of Light Strike Pro is the one used on the Adios Pro 3 racing shoe, we believe, so it's not the latest version that's used on the Pro 4, which is a bit softer, but it is still a bona fide super foam that was used on a top class racing shoe. And you've got a little nylon shank in the midsole, but no real full length plate or anything like that, just a little shank around the midfoot. You've also got a very clear noticeable rocker on the shoe, especially on the forefoot, with that rocker being inspired by the Pro Evo 1 racing shoe, according to Adidas. You've got continental rubber used on the forefoot of the shoe, and then Adidas's clear rubber in these two strips at the back. With the Pegasus Plus, things are actually even simpler than on the Adidas, in that there's not even a little shank or anything like that in the midsole. You've got a Flyknit upper with, again, a fair bit of padding around the heel and a pretty significant internal heel counter. A tongue that I don't think has caused any issues on this shoe, I would say. I can't say for sure. Again, hasn't caused me any issues though. You've got a ZoomX midsole foam. So ZoomX is the springy, bouncy foam that's been used in the Vaporfly and the Alphafly since those carbon shoes came out. I don't think it's the same version of ZoomX in this shoe than you get on Nike's racing shoes. It's a firmer foam for sure that makes it a little bit more stable and potentially more durable, but does lose some of the squishy fun that you have with those race shoes. Then you've got a rubber outsole with good coverage on the forefoot and heel with this waffly pattern that Nike tends to use on lots of its shoes. Comes the fit of the two shoes. I've got a UK 9 in both, but with Nike that's a US 10, with Adidas it's a US 9.5. So if you're looking at that UK sizing, the Adidas will certainly feel like a more dialed in and tight shoe around the toes. It's still been fine for me because I'm usually a US 9.5 or a US 10, and I still had enough room in the toe box, even if the Nike was a bit roomier, because I was basing it on UK sizing. I do think they are true to size shoes though, so if you're looking at them wherever you are in the world, I would stick to your normal running shoe size. Just try and make sure you've got that conversion right in the UK, because sometimes Adidas comes up a bit small as a result of that. I'd say that the Adidas is not as narrow and dialed in as some of the Adizero shoes have been in the past. Sometimes I do have to go half a size up on UK sizing when I look at Adidas shoes because they can be a bit tight, but I've been happy with my normal size for these brands in both of these shoes. Just if you are in the UK, look out for that conversion, and if you're around the rest of the world, just stick to your normal size because I do think they are true to size shoes. On to the run test then, and I think these are both shoes that upgraded the daily training offering in their respective brands considerably. I think both brands were missing a shoe like this, but while the Pegasus Plus I think is a really good shoe that does upgrade the options in Nike's range a lot, I think the Adidas Evo SL is a bit of a special one that not only upgrades your options from Adidas, but is a standout on the market in this category. So the Pegasus Plus does have ZoomX foam in the midsole here, but as I mentioned in the design section, this is a different ZoomX, I think, to the one you're getting on the racing shoes. It doesn't have that similar squish and sink in and then responsive spring back. It is a responsive foam. It's still a lightweight foam. It does deliver at a range of paces, but it doesn't feel quite as special as the foam you have on some of Nike's other ZoomX shoes, or indeed the Adidas Evo SL, which I think does have a softer, springier foam in there. The ride is comfortable though, and it does work at a nice range of paces. I think you've got less foam under the forefoot than you have on the Adidas, and with that 10mm drop, that kind of classic Nike ride snapping through, if you're a heel striker like myself, can be a little bit less comfortable under the forefoot than the more rockered shoe, the Adidas, that also has a bit more foam under the forefoot, I would say. So I did a nice range of training runs in the shoe during my testing, working up some faster paces as well. And it does handle a nice range of pace as well, but I don't think it's quite as fast or as explosive as the Adidas. I think as you transition onto the forefoot with the Pegasus Plus, you don't get quite as much bounce off the toes. It doesn't have quite as aggressive a rocker as the Adidas Evo SL does, but it does mean it feels a bit more relaxed when you are moving at slower paces, but I don't think it's necessarily a much better easy pace shoe, and I think it does lack a bit of pace compared to the Adidas Evo SL, partly because it's also a fair bit heavier as well. So it does feel to me like Nike made a few compromises on the ZoomX foam to make it a bit more appropriate for daily training with the Pegasus Plus, where I think Adidas just went for it and put in a really soft springy foam into a daily trainer, and it does work really well because it is comfortable. I think it is just about stable enough for most people to use for relaxed runs as well. It is a bit narrow and it does have a bit of a medial side cutout there. So if you're someone who has stability concerns, I wouldn't really look at the Evo SL for easy runs, but it's been fine for me. It's been enjoyable for all those easy runs. And then it has a lot more pace and energy underfoot when you're going to run fast compared to the Nike. It's got that softer sink-in feeling with that Lightstrike Pro foam, a really fast transition, aggressive rocker off the toes. You are getting a lot of energy return from the foam as well. That does mean I found it easier to hold fast paces in this shoe if I was doing kind of tempo runs at marathon paces and stuff like that, or do short, sharp reps in it as well compared to the Nike. It just turns over faster, feels nimbler, the Adidas, and just feels like it's giving you a bit more back in terms of energy return. So I was looking at like a general training week. The Adidas is the shoe I'd be more confident in to go and do some really hard training runs in, and also do a lot of easy to steady progression runs throughout my week, and not really finishing at an express pace or anything like that in those, but there's certainly a run that I really enjoy doing in the Adidas Evo. So I think it's the perfect easy to steady shoe because it is nice and comfortable at the back of the shoe as a heel strike when I'm moving at easy paces, and then just has such a dynamic ride when you start to go through the gears, and it feels really great at those faster paces as well. I did enjoy doing those runs in the Nike, but it's just a step up in the level of enjoyment you have here, but just because I think the foam is a big upgrade on the version of ZoomX you have in the Pegasus Plus. Did do a run in both shoes at the same time, that kind of bore out those differences. You're getting that softer, more explosive ride from the Adidas, and the transition is just smoother and faster as well. It is a more rocketed shoe, it has a lower drop, and it just feels like it's pushing you onto your toes a bit better. Nike kind of snap through with that more traditional silhouette that Nike has of its shoes, a little bit less rocketed. You get some energy return off the ZoomX, but not a huge amount. I feel like while it is pretty comfortable and it certainly is soft enough at the heel to be enjoyable for those relaxed runs, it doesn't have the punch you get from the Adidas. On to the verdict, and for me this is a bit of a no contest. The Nike Pegasus Plus is a really good shoe, one I'd be happy to have in my rotation, but the Adidas Evo SL is a special shoe and one that would knock out a shoe like the Nike from my rotation. Don't really think there's any kind of run that I'd rather be in the Nike over the Adidas for. It's more fun to run in, it's lighter, it's faster, it's a little bit softer, just has a better vibe to it for me. I just enjoy running in it more, and it's also significantly cheaper. And I think Adidas has made a really good shoe here because it is a simple shoe, but it has really nice materials used all round, and it just shows what you can do with this kind of lightweight trainer where that brand is prepared to put in one of its top foams, even if it's not the latest version of Lightstrike Pro, and a really lightweight but still comfortable shoe. Hopefully brands like Nike and others will take a few cues from this and we'll get a very simple, lightweight, full ZoomX daily trainer that's almost more in the mold of the original Streetfly than the new one, which looks very aggressive and racy. But something like the Pegasus Plus, I think, because you're not getting, for me, that top tier ZoomX experience that you can get from the racing shoes and that kind of thing. It doesn't have the verve and energy that you get from the Evo SL. So I'm hoping that maybe we'll see a slightly more stripped back version of this with a softer, bouncier version of ZoomX at some point. Like I said, I do think it's a really good shoe. Some people might prefer the higher drop you have here, the more traditional ride. You get a bit more ground feel under the forefoot. I think it's a little bit more stable than the Evo SL as well, but the Nike is also quite a narrow shoe. It's not one that's necessarily built for stability, but it does have certainly a firmer base and a more reliable base if you are a bit worried about stability and that kind of thing. But for the most part, the Adidas Evo SL I think is a better shoe on most fronts, and it's the one I get, and it's cheaper. So yeah, it wins out on this versus on multiple fronts. That's a comparison of the Adidas Evo SL and the Nike Pegasus Plus. Let us know what you think in the comments below. Please like and subscribe, ring the little bell, and we'll see you next time.